So, I remember like it was yesterday. It was one of those deceptively cold Saturday afternoons in January where the sun looks like it looks today, but you walk outside and that cold air just rips out your lungs. When Gunnar was little, I worked 7 days a week, 3 different jobs to provide for our family. And it was very rare that I would have a day off or an afternoon off to spend any of that guy time. And for whatever reason, on this particular Saturday, I had a couple hours, so I was able to go Harley shopping with some friends from high school. Not for me, for them. And when I walked in the door to my home after spending a couple hours at the Harley dealership, I saw my fiance, arms folded, sitting on a chair, just kind of staring through me. And you get that look, and guys, you know that look when you're in trouble. And I did what a lot of guys do. I say, "What's wrong?" And the response I got was nothing. That cold, "We're fine." And I hate the word fine. We talked about it a couple weeks ago, which is a terrible word. And so I pushed and prodded and pulled because I wanted to know what the problem was. And after about an hour of this kind of fake fight, I got what I was asking for. I got the fight. A fight that really had been brewing for months. I said terrible things. I made terrible judgments about my son's mother, that she wasn't a good provider. I held it against her that I was working 7 days a week while she stayed home. I questioned her ability as a mother. She repaid me with not kind things, and it was this one on top of another, meaner, angrier judgments on each other's families, on each other's upbringings. It was a tornado of anger until she said, "If that's the way that you feel, maybe I should just pack my things, maybe we shouldn't get married, and maybe I should leave." And I couldn't even really look her in the face. It's one of those, like when a kid's in trouble, the head down, but kind of looking at the parent. I looked at her and I said, "Fine." And I watched as she collected some of her things. When she took Gunnar and left, knowing that she would never be back again. Immediately, I felt relief. Like these weights that had been built on my shoulders for months had fallen off. But before I could really recognize that emotion, it was like 10 times the amount of weight had landed back. I recognized that I was a failure, that I had failed my family, that I failed my son, that because of my actions and his mom's actions, because of I focused on my actions, that I had broken our family.
It was actually a pretty warm day. Luke and I had been dating for a few, probably about 8 months, maybe even a year. And I had met Gunnar, and please note that when I prayed to God for a husband, ta-da! For those of you that are single, ask for what you want, wait for it, and he just shows up. And then you kind of have to work for it. It took us a few months to figure out we were perfect for each other, but once we figured that out, it was like bread and butter. Like, it was easy. It was just great. Like, everything fell in place, and I was like, it is very surreal to look across the table and be like, "Oh, you're that guy. You're that guy that I've been praying for forever." Like, dear diary, please make him tall and handsome. And I remember again, I just remember so vividly, we had gone to a park or something, and Gunnar was still little enough, he was like 2 at the time, that he could be carried. He can't be carried so much anymore. He's grown up too fast. Anyway, so and Luke was carrying him. And I remember I said something, and Gunnar did this. And like, but this is the first time that I thought, we're building a family. Like, God gave me a family. When I got this award, and they asked me about my family, and I talked to them about it, and I told them, and they published it, which I thought was so great. They said, I was really lucky. Most women are only swept off their feet by one man. I got swept off my feet by 2. That's right. So today we're going to talk about blended families, and we're going to talk about 5 fundamental things. Some are easy to talk about, most are not easy to talk about. And so I hope that you hear our hearts on this. But furthermore, we feel that there are some fundamental truths that become illuminated, that become illustrated, and much more high risk when you're in a blended family. But there are some fundamental truths around that are in the things that we're going to talk about today. And so I hope all of you that are still in nuclear families will still turn on your listening ears.
That's good. Okay, so the first one is to really understand that they, meaning the parent and children, were a parent before they were your spouse. But that doesn't give you an excuse to exclude the incoming step parent. And so kind of when I was kind of telling the story about when kind of my family fell apart, I think it's important for me to share that when that happened, because I never thought I was going to be a single dad. That wasn't something that when they ask you want to be a grown up, nobody says I want to be a single dad. It wasn't something that I expected. And so when I was a single dad, I had to be the best single dad. I had to do everything for my son. And so in doing that, I kind of joked with Adrian, I built a kingdom for Gunnar and I. And all were welcome in our kingdom, but there was a tower that was just for Gunnar and I. And it was very much, when I met Adrian and we fell in love with each other, there was still very much presence of it's Luke and Gunnar, Adrian. Like, it was Gunnar and I, and she was a part of that. And that was unfair to her, and it put stress on our relationship. Now, I'm not saying run out and as soon as you find a partner, immediately blend in that family. You have to do it on your terms. But because there's so much judgment out in the world about being a single parent, we commonly put up this giant shield, more than I think that we should do, because it makes it difficult for you to connect with that person who could be your partner.
Absolutely. But you have to also understand that, or at least I had to very early, that before Luke was my husband, he was Gunnar's dad. And as a blended family, you have to understand that stuff. So this is how we've overcome it in talking about practical tips for blended families. Luke and Gunnar have Dudes Day. They have Dudes Talks. That's just about dudes. Where they
Sure.
hang out in their underwear and fart. That's what they do. They play video games, and I am not allowed. But Gunnar and I also have a team. It's called the Champions.
They have title belts.
We have title belts. Gunnar will come to me and say, Adrian, because it's Adrian. Adrian, let's tickle Dad. Okay. And it is the Champions against Dad. And we have Champions dates. We have Champions, and it is through that team that Gunnar and I have built that relationship that is independent of Luke. Does that make sense? So if you are and even if you're married, I think it's important to have, it's just a little harder when you got to understand, guys, Gunnar has his mom, he has his dad, he has his grandma, he has his grandpa, and he has his Adrian. I'm not a title, right? I don't come with inherent emotion. And so we have to build that. And that's how we've done it in our family. Romans 9:25 says, as he says in Hosea, I will call them my people who were not my people. I will call her my loved one who is not my loved one. Guys, God adopts all of us into his fold. We alienate ourselves all the time from that, but God keeps adopting us into his fold. And I'm here to testify that I can call Gunnar my people who was never mine. I can call him loved one. I tell people that if nothing else was on this earth, step parenting is proof that God exists, because evolution would tell me that I would try to push Gunnar out of the pack, right? It is unnatural, guys. It is unnatural to love something as much as I love Gunnar, because he's not mine. But I can still be a really great parent to him. But I have to understand that sometimes it will be Luke and Gunnar, Adrian. But as a family, we've grown into Luke and Adrian and Gunnar.
I think too, it's very natural when you're in that raw state of you find yourself kind of raising a child on your own, that outsiders can threaten the bond. And when, quite frankly, the exact opposite is what strengthens our bond. By bringing Adrian into our family, we've grown from just Gunnar and Dad to a family. And it's easy when you're kind of in that upside down, inside out universe, just trying to survive, to not embrace those types of things that can really make your family strong.
Amen. So there's this other thing that we're going to talk about. A lot of people, when they talk about blended families, talk about the kid, which is easy because go running back into the arms of this other woman. They have a child together. Can I compete with that? They have this bond that I can't compete with. So if they're fighting, I feel safe. When exactly is the opposite. Because what we have to realize is that Jen is our family. And even though they're not married anymore, or never were married, or not together anymore, that Jen is a part of our family. And that was probably the hardest thing for me to grasp. In Romans 9:25, it says, nope, never mind. In 8:7, the mind governed by the flesh is hostile to God, and it does not submit to God's law, nor can it do so. As soon as I said, okay, God, I am hostile towards this person that I've never met. It took us a long time for me to meet Jen. I'm hostile towards this person. I'm jealous of her. I'm jealous of a 2-year-old at times because he was getting Luke's attention and I wasn't. I just said, I can't do this anymore, but I know that you ordained this. You got to help me. And the one thing that I heard over and over again is, you just have to submit. You have to submit to me. You have to submit to Luke. And I am a strong, proud feminist, and I said, sure won't submit to a man. I've been doing this awesome for like 27 years. And then we'd fight. And so that was something that I had to realize, is that sometimes I just had to let it go, and that sometimes Jen had to win this competition. And then all of a sudden it went from away from her winning and me losing to, it's not a competition. It's not a competition.
How long was it into our relationship before kind of the jealousy towards Jen started to subside?
What is it today?
Sure.
No, I'm just kidding. I think it took me a couple of years, honestly. It was, and it was very intense in the beginning, and then got less. But and as I started to grow in our relationship, and I started to become more secure in what we were doing, and me and Gunnar's relationship, then I'd realize slowly but surely, and with a lot of God's help, that there was nothing to be jealous of. And so it takes, it's not an easy, fast process.
So, in a nuclear family, if all goes according to plan, mom puts dad on a pedestal, dad puts mom on a pedestal, everyone works collaboratively for the family. When you're in a blended family, that becomes more and more difficult because, for whatever reason, there's reasons why mom and dad are not in the same household. And for us, probably one of the hardest things I have to do, and I think that our family has to do, is love Jen. We have to love her for being Gunner's mom. And on days when love is not the first word that comes to my mind, are the first days when we should be loving her the most. Because the fact of the matter is that I can't be a great dad if I'm doing that at the expense of Jen being a great mom. It's very difficult in a blended family for mothers and fathers to support each other in different households. Just like it's hard sometimes for mothers and fathers to support each other in the same households. But in a nuclear family, if something goes bad between mom and dad, there's that time at the end of the night to connect and repair wounds and move on. In blended families, you don't have that. No one remembers the I'm sorry's, they just remember the last fight. And so we put Jen on a pedestal in our home. We talk about her constantly. And I see friends and peers who are in similar situations that they talk about the mom or the dad that's not in the house is almost to kind of find ways to pick at them or to question their decisions. And we're not perfect, but we work really hard to involve Jen in our conversations. And so, for instance, Gunner loves to swim. Probably among all things, he would rather be in a pool than probably doing anything else. And he has struggled all summer to do a somersault in the water. He's been working on it. And Friday, not only did he do a single somersault, a double somersault, a triple, a single, to a backwards, it was incredible.
It was amazing.
And these are these little victories that we as a family want to celebrate. And it's important for Gunner's mom to celebrate in that too. And so, while we could hold that and relish that moment, like the three of us, we choose to involve her, and we encourage Gunner to call her or to FaceTime her, send her a video of him doing it, so that she can revel in those moments as well. Little milestones should be shared by moms and dads, regardless if they live in the same household.
Absolutely. So what ordained that you got to remember, we met 4 months after that day. Remember, right? So how do you say this to this man that is amazing, who's the most amazing man that you've ever met, that has this like adorable son and has melted your heart, and who you're both trying to figure out the rules of what it means to be exes but raising a family together, but your needs need to be met. How do you look at this man and go, yeah, it's really crappy that I have to leave the house whenever she comes over? How do you say that? Like, how do you say those things out loud? How do you say, I need you to get a babysitter once in a while so that we can have time together? And for those of you that have been in blended families, for those of you in nuclear families, maybe you're like, well, yeah, get a babysitter, bleh. But if when we only have him 50% of the time, and we have him every weekend, and I want to go out on a Friday night instead of a Tuesday night, people our age usually don't go out on Tuesday nights unless they have addiction problems. How do you say that, right? Like, how do you say that? And so what we would have to do is say, are we in a safe place? And he would say yes. And I say, I need you to give I need you to give up a night of Gunner time for me. I'm feeling I'm feeling like we need to connect again. Is there any way that we can go out with our friends on Friday? I understand that means that we'll have to give Gunner to his grandparents, but is there any way that we can do that? It's a way that we said the hard things, even if it was about Gunner, who, remember, he's fiercely protective of Gunner. But remember that your partner is not the person to gush to. Ladies or gentlemen, if you are the step parent or the other, get a friend who you can say those things to. Absolutely. Luke is not my girlfriend. I can't gush to him, and if I do, it's way more high risk. I can't tell you how many times over a glass of wine I talked to my friends and was like, I don't know that I can do this. This is really hard. I'm really struggling. I'm really having a hard time here. I'm starting to question things. I can say that to a friend. If I say that to Luke, he goes, okay. And whether that's out of love for me, I don't want you to go through this, or out of frustration, I can't say those things. But make sure it's a girlfriend that will steer you back to what God has ordained for you. I am so lucky that I had friends in my life that said, Adrian, is he worth it? And I said, yeah, he's everything. And they're like, then he's worth it. So take the time. And also realize that you're both trying to figure out these rules. I remember one time, and you probably don't remember this, Jen had moved into this house that had this very ugly tree in the backyard. Like, it was hideous. And she had called Luke and said, can you help me take out this tree? And Luke, being the man that he is, says, absolutely. And I said, really? And Luke said, it's for Gunnar. And I said, is it going to fall on him? And he said, no. I said, is it endangering him? And he said, no. I said, then you know what? Jen has other men in her life. You're not that guy anymore. She has a dad. She has brothers. Not brothers, but she has brothers-in-laws. She has family. She has friends that can help her take out that tree. You're not that guy anymore. But it was because of we were in a safe place that I was able to say things like that.
As that dad, and I kind of talked about building my kingdom with my tower just for Gunnar and I. While I can totally admit it now, I didn't know how to be a parent, let alone a single parent. But no one was going to tell me what I was doing was wrong, because I had all the best intentions. I was doing everything for this child. And so when people would try and interject, we would just build another layer of that tower to insulate I say we, Gunnar and I, but it was really to insulate myself from other people questioning what I was doing. And I'll talk about this a little bit more later on. Being a single parent sucks. And I know that's probably not the best way to put it, but it does.
No, that's in the Bible, I think.
I think it's in the back. Moreover, and single moms, my heart breaks for you, because there's a lot of bad dads that are out there. But for single dads that are doing their best for their kids, it is hard. And everyone judges you. Everyone makes the assumption that you're one of those other guys. And so because of that, I insulated myself. And when Adrian would say, are we in a safe place? It pulled me out just for a moment to be receptive to what she wanted to share. And what was really remarkable is why this quote-unquote safe place was really created to really address how we worked as a couple building a family. It really spurred into our relationship. And there's safe places every week. 2 nights ago, we were having a stupid argument about where to go buy groceries, Winco or Fred Meyer. I'm afraid of things that are counter to what we believe, we automatically resist that. And what I really like is that when either of us say Gunnar's mom and I split custody with Gunnar 50-50. But a 4-year-old doesn't understand 50-50. A 4-year-old understands halves, but there's not 8 days in a week, there's 7. So how do you do that? And so I built this. And there's 3 red blocks, there's 3 gray blocks, and each of these blocks represent a day. So we had the mom days, and we had the dad days. And then we have, there we go. Maybe that'll help, I don't know. We have the day that we share, which is different, but it accounts for time with mom and a time for dad. And this sits on a shelf. And if there's a question about where he's going with his mom or where he's going with his dad, he counts his Legos. And it was a way for me to connect with him on his terms to address an issue that's really grown up, that kids shouldn't have to deal with. But we were forced to. And, I'll let you go and then I'll talk, sorry.
And in the way of talking on terms in their own timing, like, again, how do you explain what a stepmom is to a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old? Like, it doesn't come with inherent emotions or loyalty. It's just a stepmom. And we have never pushed that on Gunnar ever. He just calls me Adrian, and if he decides to call me something else later, that's his deal. But I remember I pulled up, Luke told me this story, I'm so glad that he did. We have this little neighborhood boy called Mason. We call him Mr. Mason. And Mason and Gunnar were sitting on the porch together eating a popsicle. And I pull up, and Mason turns to Gunnar and goes, "Oh, your mom's here." And Gunnar goes, "No, that's my stepmom." Like, he came to that all on his own. And we have allowed him to kind of grow in that on his own.
Because adults are the ones that put meaning to titles. Gunnar, you call Adrian, you can call him Adrian, you can call him stepmom. D. He knows that she's not his mom, but he also knows that she loves him like she was. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters to him. It doesn't matter the name, it matters the connection that he has. And there's no title in the world that will create an emotional connection that a child will be able to form on their own.
The last thing about this is laugh the stumbles. Gunnar calls me mom all the time, and we just laugh because he's like, "Oh, darn it." And there was a time early, Luke called me Jen. And that was awesome.
After a fight. But you know what? We laughed because there's nothing else to do about it, right? What can you do? Get upset about it? No, you just laugh. And his parents call me Jen all the time still on accident, and we laugh at it because that's what you have to do, because if not, you're going to be angry a whole lot over nothing, because it is just a title, it's just a name. Okay, so last, because we need to wrap up.
We do need to.
The last one, and this is one I think that nuclear family, blended family, no family, soon to have a family, is leave the judgment for God. I mentioned earlier how hard it is to be a single parent, and that self-inflicted judgment that I have failed, that I've broken the family, and it was increasingly more difficult when I felt that judgment from my family, my parents, from my colleagues. I mean, everything you're doing when you're in that single family is you're trying to salvage, you're trying to fix things, and you feel like that you're in a room with no doors and you're just trying to get out. And so let God judge me. We don't need your parents to judge your kids on these types of things. You don't need to judge your coworkers and friends. God's there. He's got that one handled, and it's always better to let him do it anyways.
Absolutely. And also leave the judgment for, again, because it's very easy for me to judge Jen because she's doing things wrong or not the way I would do things, or you know, whatever. But I have to remember I've never been a single mom before. And even though I'm closer to the situation, I have no idea what it's like to be her. It's very difficult to be in a blended family. It's very hard. But I'm here to testify if there's one thing, and as I was praying about this, and as Luke and I prayed about this together, and again, I just kept hearing the same thing over and over again, and even in worship, because I do a panic prayer right before we go up here.
You too?
Yeah, it happens. There's one thing that God just kept telling me over and over, and it is that God is still in the business of healing families. And that even means very broken families, even on a very structural level. And your God, my God, where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, even if death separates me and you. She wasn't saying that to Boaz. She was saying that to her mother-in-law. I'm here to testify that even if your stepkids are being horrible, if the ex is being horrible, that you make things right here and let God take care of the rest. God heals severely broken families. He did it then, and he's doing it now. And I can say that because I've seen it in my life. Everybody says that you did step parenting so easily, like you kind of took to it. There's no taking to step parenting. It is truly only through God and a lot of prayers that I feel like we are a whole family.
That's good. That's perfect. You're perfect. That's good.
It gets better. I just promise. It gets better. It's not easy, but it's worth it. That's it. I will pray for it. Do you want to pray
No,
for us?
you're great.
Okay. Can we bow our heads, please? Oh. God, we know that there is no such thing as a perfect couple. And there's certainly no such thing as a perfect family. And we know that the Bible has ordained what marriage is, but you and we know that that doesn't happen all the time. That there's brokenness even in nuclear families. That sometimes the very foundation, the very structure of what you've ordained a family to be can break. Lord, today I hope that you speak into the hearts, directly into the hearts. Let the people of Connections kind of open up their chest and allow you into their hearts. Speak words of kindness and peace and hope into those families that think that they are broken. God, if there are broken families or blended families or families that are just, we know that there's a continuum of family. Just walk in that family. Have them turn to you in those times of trouble. Because we know that you are still in the business of healing families. Just have us turn to you in those, and turn us to you, albeit how forcefully. We say these things, amen.
Thank you guys for sharing your hearts.
Love you.
Love you.